Yeah.
How's that as an atheist?
It's awful. That's why I do this. Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody has heard me bitch about how much I hate living in the South. So, yeah, it's awful, but it is what it is. So.
Do you have to keep it quiet?
No. Most people, when I came out here, I didn't realize how bad it was. So most people around where I live found out anyway. Plus, my son.
There goes our internet.
That was well timed.
But did she freeze up?
Well, everybody, welcome. Thanks for coming back. Yeah, Mama will continue what she's saying in a wee minute when her internet comes back up again. But yeah, thanks everybody for coming back. We've got the Erin After Party. If you didn't miss the show before, we are lucky enough tonight to have with us Erin Lewis, ex-stripper turned author, and forced outspoken atheist on Twitter.
We're all forced. Reluctant, maybe.
Do we have you back, Mama?
Yes, sorry.
Sorry, you were saying before you cut out there.
It's just, my son wants to be out as an atheist, and I want to, it would be wrong for me to hide it and expect him to be okay with it. So,
how old is your son, if you don't mind?
Yeah, he's 16.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mine's 15, but he just kind of avoids the whole thing. I don't,
He, like with his friends and stuff, he's open about it. He was a lot more open when he first decided that he was an atheist. We lived in Arizona at the time, and it was easier for him then to talk about with people here. I mean, Arizona isn't exactly the most liberal state, but it's still better than the deep South. And,
yeah. What are the schools like then as an atheist? Like, that's actually how I just kind of got into it, is because I had been following the Freedom from Religion Foundation for a while, and I ended up meeting them because we had an issue with the school, and that was how I really ended up getting involved at all. I just figured atheism was I just didn't believe in God, and that was kind of the end of the whole thing. And then when it really kind of started to infiltrate my son's school is when I got kind of bent about it. And that was when I took action and kind of, stepped into this whole thing. But I can't imagine what it's like in the South.
Yeah, they've got the whole "In God We Trust" signs everywhere with actual crosses underneath them. They try. It's a little better. I'm not far from Atlanta, and I think the closer you are to the bigger cities, the less, super religious you are. Like our town is filled with churches and stuff, but I think because we're closer to, a more liberal city, one of the more liberal cities in the South, it's not as bad as if you went like 3 hours outside of Atlanta. However, a lot of my son's teachers are very open about their beliefs, and they don't try to necessarily push it on the kids, but they will discuss it. And I always feel really uncomfortable when I meet one of my son's teachers and they're wearing like a big crucifix and they'll talk about how, the churches that they'll ask flat out, oh, what church do you guys attend or whatever? And it's like, why would you even bring that up? Let alone how is that any of your business? So, it's not easy. It's not like I said, I'm from Connecticut originally. New England, people go to church, but just out of habit, they don't really, nobody's really that religious. It's not a huge deal. But they certainly never bring it up in schools. It never comes anywhere near the schools. There are a lot of programs too around here that try to connect the kids and the schools with the churches. They're very intertwined, especially in the South. So yeah, it's uncomfortable, but at least, we moved here about 2.5 years ago, and he had already had decided he was an atheist well before that, and I didn't have to worry about him being indoctrinated in any sort of way. Like, he was just like, this is who I am. I don't believe in God. I don't really care. And so I was looking in that regard.
That's how mine is just really apathetic to the whole thing. So he's kind of like, why do you even need to tell people you're an atheist? And I'm like, for the most part, I don't. I never did. It was just kind of like, until it became an issue.
Yeah.
And then it was like, well, I'm not going to let some of this stuff stand, especially when it has started to invade my kid's space.
Yeah.
So that was where I really had an issue. But I'm in California, Northern California, and so we have a lot of churches, but it's not like I'm not necessarily. I mean, I don't have to duck if I tell somebody I'm an atheist. I'm not like.
It's not Georgia.
Yeah, no, I have been,
Yeah, and I've never actually. The only thing I know about Atlanta is what I've heard about the strip clubs. It has quite the reputation, actually.
so.
But I don't know. I've been to Louisiana, but that was it. And that was well before I had my son or came out as an atheist. So I actually did a lot of ghost hunting in New Orleans, which was
I've heard about that. I've never actually been to Louisiana, other than my brother went to school in North Carolina. So when I was younger, I went there a few times, but other than that, Georgia's pretty much the only place in the South that I've really spent any time at, and I fucking live here, so.
Yeah.
Two quick things. One, I always wonder how many atheists there are out there that just go to church with their family and they don't want to make waves, and so they just keep their mouth shut and let everybody think that they still believe in God. I mean, I think if we were able to count all those folks, the percentage of atheists in this country would be a lot larger.
Mm-hmm.
You're very lucky to have
sure.
the FFRH though. Coming from, you're very lucky to have the FFRH over there to help you out with the schools and things like that. Being here in Ireland, I've been through it before here in the channel with the wee girl that I have. It's a lot of the schools in the area that she's growing up in is all run by the Catholic Church. They're all run by the fucking Catholic Church, and there's very little that can be done about that.
We have a lot of it in. Actually, I just wrote an article for Secular Nation, which is Atheist Alliance of America's publication. And I wrote about the Catholic freaking has infiltrated the health care system. So the closest doctors to me are all affiliated with Catholic-run healthcare. And they literally make decisions based on that. But they also don't disclose that they do that. So the article I wrote was just about my experience with them before, when I was actually looking for permanent contraception, and the lady flat out lied to me, telling me that I was too young and that they couldn't do it, and actually at one point told me it was illegal. And of course I found out later it wasn't. She lied, but I believed her because she was my doctor, and even though I knew that they were affiliated with the Catholic Church, it never occurred to me that was like, I thought they just had like crosses on the walls and a fucking statue of a saint in front when you walked in. I didn't realize that anybody actually made decisions based on those beliefs, and it sucked. It was really bad to find that out. I was kind of horrified. And even now, trying to find a doctor that's not affiliated with Dignity Health is difficult. It's very difficult. I have to drive to the next town to get away from Catholic healthcare.
I don't understand how over and over again they can get away with claiming any sort of moral authority when they are willing to just lie. Knowingly lie, not just the magic stuff.
Yeah, and that was why I had that was one of the reasons why I wrote my article. It's actually called "My Doctor Lied to Me," because it is so grossly immoral, but it's also not what you would expect from a doctor somebody you think would be science oriented. And I get that if you have a chapel in the hospital. When right before my mom passed, we had the priest, Father O'Connell, actually had an Irish accent and everything. And that was the right thing to do. That's what she would have wanted, and that was but I thought that that's what that meant. I didn't think that kind of like as a support thing. Like, it didn't occur to me that if you were Buddhist or Muslim or something, that they wouldn't have the same type of thing or support. I just thought that they just kind of called themselves Catholic. I didn't realize that they actually, or at least some of their doctors, actually make decisions based on their religion, which I found really, really disgusting and immoral just in itself.
Mm-hmm.
Was it you, MathPig, that was telling us, or was it someone else we were chatting with in an interview about being Catholic in mainland Ireland, in Republic of Ireland, and about the fact the number of people that tick the Catholic box because they're not British?
Yes. That's a lot of that does be found over here, because
they don't want to be
exactly
seen as
that phrase that we were saying, but yeah, they tick Catholic because that's what their cultural is, and it boils down to a political thing about who they want to vote for. Like even on a silly, really pedantic small thing, the town that my wee girl was born in is called now the City of Derry. All the Protestants still refer to it as Londonderry because London is Britain. And whenever we went in and changed and wrote down her birth certificate and were registering her after birth, they asked us what religion she was being registered as. And we'd already agreed that she wanted to be Catholic because Donna wanted it to be raised the same as her with all that there. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is they deleted the name Londonderry on the paperwork and actually changed it on the birth certificate to Derry because we had chosen the religion of Catholic. They actually changed the name of the city. So it's it's more of this is a Catholic birth certificate over a Protestant birth certificate.
It's really odd that they would put a religion on a birth certificate in the first place.
That's
Well, I mean, don't you know that immediately after exiting the womb that you believe in God and you've already picked your religion? You didn't know that?
You've actually made a decision.
Full disclosure here, California, haven't been a lot of places. I'm shocked at that.
It's nice out there. Why would you leave?
Yeah. No, I'm shocked that they would put a religion. I mean, what do you do? So what do you do if you have to change your birth certificate? Like that's a big part of. I mean, really your main form of original identification, at least here. So if you're going to the DMV to apply for your driver's license and you bring your birth certificate and you're not Catholic anymore, that's what they chose for. Like, do you go back and change that? I mean,
you can't change that. There are things you can do that get from the Catholic Church. There are things you can do to get yourself excommunicated, but basically, unless you are excommunicated, unless they have acknowledged that you have left the church in writing, unless you have the documentation to prove it, you are always a Catholic.
That is disturbing and like fascinating at the same time. That's really amazing. My mother went to Catholic school from kindergarten all the way up through college, and I actually have her high school. Her Catholic high school ring, and I have like a rosary. It's like a child's rosary of all things. It's like big wooden beads and stuff. I have a few things from my family that are just inherently Catholic, but it's so weird. So you have to like petition the church to like say you're not Catholic anymore.
Yes,
that's horrible.
and they have to agree. You don't just get to say I'm not Catholic. They've got to actively agree.
That's funny because that's actually kind of how my family reacted. Was like, what do you mean? No, you're not.
You're not leaving.
Yeah. I'm like, no, really. You gotta go.
So, wait a minute. So something that they label you with at the moment you're born, when your brain doesn't even work yet, you can't choose to get rid of it when you're an adult.
Well, they just choose. They refuse to believe that I didn't believe. That was what it was like. It was like, well, I'm an atheist. No, you're not.
You're nice. You're not a monster. You're not evil. You can't be an atheist.
Well, that was what was funny is that I have a brother who I believe is like more evangelical deal now. I'm not sure, but he asked me where I get my moral, or he goes, well, you can't have any morals, and I'm like, well, what do you? I'm like, first off, I've been an atheist since I was a kid, probably since I was 10 or 11, when I was finally like, this shit ain't real.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of let it go. I was like, well, this is what everybody does around you. So there was the cultural aspect of that. Is that okay? Well, like I Googled myself on the internet. That always sounds like something dirty, but I do Google dirty shit on the internet, but usually not in connection to myself. But I just wanted to see what was out there. And on one of those websites, it labeled me as a Christian. And I thought, haha, I must have checked that box on a form somewhere 20 years ago. And it just is still there. But yeah, he's known me my whole life. I've always been, tried to help and honest. And when I don't steal, I don't eat blood. And it's like, well, where the fuck do you think that came from? And I tried to tell him, because my brothers are so much older than me, I tried to tell him, I learned my morals and my ethics from you. I learned them from my parents and my family. You taught me to be a good person. Yeah. I certainly didn't get that from the Bible. I'm like, have you read the fucking Bible? There's like 3 things in there that are okay. Everything else is like, whoa.
That's the awesomest thing you just said, because anytime I'm ever asked that question, where do you get your morals from, when I let them know I'm an atheist, that's the first thing I say is, have you read the Bible? Like, I don't know how anybody reads the Bible and then decides afterwards that God is the good guy in that story.
Because most people only read what's been read out in church. Most people only read what they've been told to go home and read. They don't actually sit down and read it as a book.
Less than 20%.
No, and then they don't even read that. They just say they do.
Yeah, less than 20% have read the Bible.
What's the percentages on that from the atheist side?
I learned more about the Bible as an atheist than I did growing up as a Catholic.
You say 20% of people that are religious actually read the Bible.
20% of Christian.
Yeah, and I would say that in atheists, it's probably 80%.
That's what I'm just asking.
I can disagree. I think most atheists, don't forget, within our community, I think it's probably 80%.
Right.
But in general, most atheists don't give a shit about Christianity.
Yeah, we're all just weirdos.
Don't hear about. Sorry, go on.
Except when it starts to infiltrate politics and things like that. That's when I start to have an issue with it. But I had to go back and read, because I kind of rewrote the story of Adam and Eve to begin one of my chapters. And so I went back and read it, and I looked up the children's version, and then I looked up like the actual version and how people, interpret it. Because, I mean, God's word needs to be fucking interpreted. Which seems kind of, it seems like that should be like your first clue. If it's perfect, why does everybody look at it different? But I rewrote the story, and I was absolutely fucking horrified. Even the kids version is something I wouldn't want my child to read before the age of reason, before they were old enough to understand that this was fucking bullshit. But the actual story is horrifying. It's really awful, and you can kind of understand how much misogyny comes from stories like that. I don't understand how you could be a woman and be a Christian, honestly, and believe that. But I was pretty horrified, because it wasn't what I remember learning in Sunday school, which was, I only went to church as a kid, as a really little kid. I asked a lot of questions. I was a huge pain in the ass. So they kind of just quit, gave up. They're like, well, she's baptized. She's on her own there. I haven't read communion.
It's interesting, and I might get told off for this, because it's not my story. Caroline, my partner, tells me about when she was in Sunday school, and again, they didn't teach her any of the. She's looking at me. Any of the subjugation stuff. But whenever in church, she had her brother, and she was just pulled out of anything to go and look after him. It was always expected that she would do that. And she was only 2 years older than him, but it was very early on. It was this insidious kind of this is your role.
Yeah.
So even though they weren't teaching the what the Bible says about it, they were very much demonstrating it.
Yeah, and like I have 3 big brothers, and they would always change my oil, but never teach me how. My first car was a 74 Camaro, so it needed a lot of work, and it was expensive, and I worked at fucking McDonald's, so I wanted to learn how to work on it at least a little bit, and they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't teach me how. That was a man's thing. They would do it, but they wouldn't teach me. And so while they weren't saying that was it was known what was,
and that goes in your head.
What was your role? Yeah.
Well, I have to say, my wee girl just turned 3 in February, and she's already been underneath the bonnets with me many a time. Yeah, I've already got her own wee boiler suit and her own wee plastic tool belt, and she lies under the car with me and helps out.
Yeah, but it's really like you said, like Dave said, on the down low. It's not really outward a lot of times. It's just sort of the way that it is.
I bought a classic car whenever they were pregnant. I bought a classic car for my wee girl for us to fix together. That's the plan, to give us something to do together when she gets a wee bit older. There's a 1984 Ford Capri sitting in my ma's drive waiting to get fixed up. And when she gets old enough and knows a wee bit about it, and Aaron, I'll send you pictures of whenever I was working on the car, and I turned around. Dave's seen this one. I've turned around, and the battery powered guns that you take the wheels off with, the big nuts off with? Have you ever seen them? It's like a big gun. Like a drill.
Oh, Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the battery powered one. I turned around and the wee girl had lifted it and had it up on the wheel with her gloves and all going. Da, 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 da. It's like, fucking it, stop and take a picture, then take it off her.
Yeah, no, I have no desire to work on cars now. I bought a BMW a few years ago, and it just comes with a maintenance thing. I've never even opened the hood on it. I just take it in. I send a text and say, hey, I need to bring it in. And then, so now I have no desire. But when I was a teenager, it would have been helpful. And it never occurred to me that those ideas came from probably how they were raised. Like I said, my 5 siblings went to church and did all that stuff. And for me, even now, if I end up at a funeral or a wedding or whatever, I'm the idiot sitting in the back that doesn't get to eat the cracker. I have never, ever had a communion cracker. Never. So.
But you're not a
Watch
cannibal.
Christ.
It's gross.
Yeah.
That's the other thing is, how is that not like that should be your second clue. This is yucky. Like you're eating flesh and blood. I didn't find that out till like 20s or 30s. And then I was like, no, wait.
No Catholic,
That's not okay.
no Catholic over here I
that's
talk to
they
actually
claim it.
believes in that. Isn't it?
It's
Only
not
about
just
50% of the church now, I think. It's still
not
50%.
It's not just that they believe it. It's not just they believe it. They claim transubstantiation.
Yeah.
That the cracker is actually the flesh of Christ, and the wine is his blood.
Yeah. They actively believe they are eating, I was going to say human, but God.
But I don't understand why that doesn't, just the logic doesn't kick in. And you're like, no, wait, that's weird.
It's
Because
easy.
I never.
MathPig, close your ears. Because they're indoctrinated. Because they're indoctrinated to believe it.
Yeah, and I don't know why it didn't take on me, but I really kind of called out bullshit pretty early. One of the articles I wrote for the Freedom from Religion Foundation's their newsletter was about how I found morality as a child and how I kind of came to reason. And a lot of that had to do with finding out that Santa Claus wasn't real, because it was like, you're taught to parse out which stories are true. And I'm like, okay, but Noah's Ark is not only sounds really made up, but it's also a really shitty moral lesson, because nobody's calling out God for being like this fucking asshole. And that was kind of my thought in my head, was that this is if this entity exists, why the fuck are we worshiping him? Because he's a fucking dick.
Yeah.
He drowned all the animals. Why would he do that?
Most people don't even go down that route, though. That's the whole thing. It's just what Dave says is the indoctrination. He is good, he is fantastic, and no matter what he does, we must forgive him. He is doing it for the right reasons, because he created us, we just accept it.
I don't understand how they get... Oh, go on, sorry.
My question
We got delays. But I was going to say, today on Twitter, I had an exchange with somebody, and I had said what I just said a minute ago on Twitter. How does anybody read the Bible and decide God's a good guy in that story? And then this guy shot back at me, well, his morality is perfect, his judgment is perfect and all that. And then I threw the flood story back at him. I said, so drowning innocent children and babies that's the highest of morals? Are you kidding me? Or something along those lines. I mean, yeah, it's just a horrible story.
You were saying, Manda?
Just my question was, the reasoning behind the flood was God was angry at people. So why did he have to kill all the animals? And I asked that over and over, because I was raised Catholic. I went all the way through confirmation. I have an uncle that is a Monsignor in the church.
Are you still Catholic?
I guess according to you, technically. But I would ask that, they would bring out those stupid little, kids' storybooks about Noah's Ark that were all colorful and awesome, and we were supposed to be happy about this story. And I was like, this is really messed up. And why did all these animals have to die? Because God was angry at people, and nobody ever had answers for me.
You want to grow up to be a vet?
What annoys me is the cognitive is that they won't argue that God is justified. You start questioning the animals, the fact that they killed every baby, the fact that they killed every child. He killed everyone, right? And they will go through all of this, and they'll just get to the end and say, "Well, he was allowed to do it. He created them."
Yeah,
You're
They've
right.
got arguments before they get there, none of which answer that question, and it just comes down to the end. That's his will. He has the right to do that.
Yeah, and of course, as we know, if you have an unruly child, you immediately take them to the bathroom and drown them.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I never. That was something that I tried to explain when I did come out as atheist. Is that he didn't paint a very moral picture. When we had the one conversation we had about that, about the morality issue, and it was just, you're right. They never thought past that. And then when you try to bring up things, just logical things and just basic morality, they just shut down. So there's no anything beyond you're going to hell, or my personal one was, you're going to be really sorry. I'm like, when am I going to be really sorry? I mean, it's been fucking 30 years. I'm waiting for this.
I find sometimes when you talk to people, not that you'd say that you feel sorry for them, but it's just they just don't want to question it. Because they sort of know that if you question it and go down that route, that it will be proved wrong. And they're afraid of being, without a leader, without having someone to, justify what they do and things like that. And they don't want to bring the justification or the responsibility on themselves. It's easier to say that he is responsible for this, that, and the other. And they don't want to go down the route.
To the lady that runs that outreach group that I know. That's her thing. I watched her do a bunch of really shady shit and stuff that I wouldn't feel okay about doing. And that was my thought, was that that was her way of getting around taking responsibility for making those choices. Nobody made her do anything that she did. And then all of a sudden God's plan was for her to give blowjobs and do hard drugs. You know what I'm saying? It's like, well, that was your choice.
The devil
you
did
made
that.
that choice.
The devil did that, not God. The devil made her suck dick.
Well, no, it was part of
And God wasn't capable of stopping
her to the light or whatever the fuck. And it's like, no, dude, that was your fucking plan. That's what you did. And then she turns it around and tries to blame the industry and said that, well, people, if you start doing that, people will force you to do that. And I'm like, let me tell you, man, first club I worked for was owned by the Hells Angels. They didn't make me do jack shit. I did what I wanted to do, and that was it. And if I didn't want to do something, I walked out. I got, actually wrote about it more extensively in my first book, but in my third book, I read about it too, where a friend and I got scouted by a porn agent. So we went down south, and, we were in the Hustler building, and our agent was a piece of shit and had said that we were going to do all sorts of stuff we weren't going to do. So while we're sitting there looking at contracts and talking whatever, the people are like, okay, you guys are ready to do anal and all this stuff. And we're like, whoa, all we were going to do was taking pictures, And so we ended up getting just tossed out of the Hustler building, but nobody ever forced us to do anything. We always had a choice. So it really pisses me off when, especially they bring up the trafficking thing. And it's like, dude, you don't have to audition. Like if sex traffickers don't, or traffic victims don't audition to be a victim. You know what I'm saying? So that's a whole different shit. That ends up in the massage parlors and, other stuff, but not in the strip club. So
again, it's another one of those things that they use the worst possible thing in an industry.
In 20 years, I never met a stripper who was there against her will ever. Never. And that's what I found really disingenuous, because she's flat out lying to make money and to conflate the two. And then there's a group called Hookers for Jesus that does the same thing. That actually FFRF
argued with that.
Yeah, that conflation is a little similar to the way religious people want to conflate pedophilia and homosexuality all the time.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. That's ridiculous. No, I don't know. The outreach groups really bother me when they do that, because they paint it as if it's all bad, and that's not fair. There's a lot of people a lot of women that are able to do things they would not have been able to do. In fact, actually, I looked on the chat, and Randolph had asked about, a long time ago, he asked about crap.
you want me to phrase it? Wait there, I've got it. Could you ask Brazen Atheist about how common it was for students to get into the exotic dancing profession to help pay tuition? I've heard about this, but don't know how common it is. And perhaps ask about the types of subjects that some of them were studying. And he apologised for not coming in to ask himself because he's not very well.
Yeah.
No worries. I knew a girl that got her PhD in sociology. Another one that wanted to be a professor. I'm not sure in what. I went to school to be a pastry chef, which is probably not anything to brag about. And then I still had school on when I was done.
So are you a good pastry chef?
I am a pastry chef, yeah.
Are you any good?
So
good.
I am, but I don't work professionally as one. Actually, I manage a small office for like an electrical contractor. So, which is good because he listens to me, so that helps. But yeah, no, I would say probably 30-40% girls to do that, to do school, for sure.
Do you find they leave straight away? Do you find they come in and out freely? You don't. That's sound the word. No, I didn't mean freely. Freely. Do they have it? Do they find they want to stay doing it? Or is it generally it stays a means to an end?
It really depends. It really depends. It's hard on a lot of girls. So yeah, a lot of girls are ready to leave. Me personally, once I graduated school, I couldn't make nearly as much money. So it just didn't make any sense for me. And then especially after I had my son, I didn't want to have to deal with daycare and do all that. So it was just easier to work 2 or 3 nights a week and then be able to be there for him and take care of him as opposed to working a regular job. So, and especially as a pastry chef, it was really, seriously, it was financially, it was not a good move. It really was super expensive. So, I mean, I host a mean dinner party, but, I'm a good cook. I learned from a lot of chefs. None of them British or Irish, though, go figure. A lot of French.
You hear about the famous British cuisine, don't you?
Yeah, we're great with the spuds. We're very good with the spuds over here.
So I was away from the mic for a minute. And I just want to say, while I was walking around in my apartment, I came up with a brainstorm. Aaron, you should mix 2 of your former professions and open a shop and make erotic cakes.
Yeah, so that was exactly my first thought right when I graduated. And I did that for a while. In fact, I still have an email associated. I always undercharged. I made a lot of dick cakes and one vagina. So, but it just wasn't very lucrative. So now actually I've donated, I had some stencils made up and I've donated for at least one event so far. We're supposed to do another one yesterday. Obviously all that shit's canceled, but so I made godless goodies, and so I have decals and stuff that I put on cookies and things like that. But it gets kind of tricky legally when it comes to selling things out of your own kitchen. Mm-hmm. If I do it in my own county, then I could do that like legally, go to like farmers markets and things like that. But I can't ship it.
Yeah.
Across state lines.
Like we have honeybees here, and we were talking there last week. When me and my father were talking last week about maybe doing mead, because there can be more money to be made in the mead than selling it. Like, don't get me wrong, we've 30 odd hives, we make enough money from it, but it's an awful lot of work, to get the jars, and the turnover's not great. But mead and the whole idea of local breweries and things like that's very good at the minute. But if we did that, as you say, to mass scale it and sell it, we'd have to convert one of the sheds completely, or one of the buildings, and completely make it health and safety and steel this and wipeable down this, and it all has to meet regulations before you can bottle it and sell it on. And it's the investment that must be made.
Well, I mean, with pastries and stuff, there's allergy issues and stuff. I mean, somebody could sniff a peanut and die. So I understand the regulations. So I just had mead like last year for the first time ever. I had never even heard of it. I didn't even know what it was.
Honey wine, yes.
Did you like it?
Yeah, after 3 or 4 glasses, it was fabulous.
Yeah, it's got a third kick to it.
I want to get your guys' thoughts on something that happened earlier today, and I know Dave saw it because he interacted with it. And maybe I know Mama Atheist is on Twitter quite a bit, and so is Aaron. But S.J. Thomason tweeted earlier today at Skylar Fiction,
David
not
Silverman.
not DJ Hammurabi, but whatever
Yeah.
Dr. Josh's handle is on Twitter, and Pine Creek, and said, well, if atheism and agnosticism is true, then how come these people haven't been able to convince their wives of it? And a lot of people, including myself, thought that was pretty shitty.
Yeah, it is quite shitty. The
Yeah.
whole idea of it is to have a conversation. You're not out to convince anyone. Any of these things that we put on the internet, you know, it's never to convince the other person in the conversation. It's to let people think about things.
Yeah, I don't care what somebody believes. My serious problem had to do when it affected me, and literally when it affected my son. There's a huge mega church in our area that sent home flyers saying that the whole school had won a free bike, and to get the free bike you had to go to their assembly. So I messaged the group on Facebook to find out what the assembly was about, and they said, oh, well, there'll be a message of hope there. And I'm like, great, so you're bribing all these kids to go to the fucking church event to get a free bike. And so I took the flyer into the principal, and the principal was like, oh, are you a member of the church? And I'm like, no, I'm not. This is going to get really unpleasant for you.
Yeah, he gets excited because he thinks you're on his side and you're in there to scream at
Yeah,
him.
and because I walked in holding the flyer, and she's like, oh, yay, isn't that great? We won these bikes. And I said, you didn't win shit. And they played it off that it was a Title I school, so they tried to say that it was like an underprivileged school, but it happened to be in a upper class neighborhood. So it was definitely not. Because why are they going to give free bikes to people in the poor neighborhoods? They're not going to be able to contribute to the church. So I told him, I said, you can't do this. And my son, when he brought home the flyer, he was like, I'm getting a free bike. And I'm like, well, I said, those are probably for, kids that don't have bikes or whatever. I said, that's not going to be for us. I was like, if you do end up getting a free bike, we're probably going to donate it or donate the one you just got 2 months ago for Christmas. I was like, but you're not going to have 2 bikes. That's ridiculous. And I was really skeptical because I was like, well, I don't see
This isn't a good business model.
It didn't say church. It just had a name, Dignity, I think, but no church after it. So I didn't even know what the organization was. I had to actually look for it. And that was when I contacted FFRF. But the thing is that then my kid got shit for it because he wasn't going to go to the assembly. And I'm not sure if they actually ended up having the assembly or not. Or they ended up removing their message of hope. But that was why I got involved, because it was, then it ends up being a social issue for the kid. I think he was in 5th grade. So it's like, okay, so you're the only kid here who's not going to go to this assembly to get this free bike. And why is that? So now you're bringing it up, and now you have, you're opening for bullying and teasing and all that kind of stuff. So it really pissed me off. And that was really why I started getting involved. So
now here in the schools, real quick, now here in the secular schools over here, not the Catholic schools, obviously, because the Catholic schools over here you can't even teach in unless you have a religious degree. That only 2 universities in Northern Ireland can do it now, and you have to get that if you can want to teach in the Catholic school. But in the secular ones, the ones run by the government, you can actually opt out. There is an RE class, religious education class, and you can opt out for your child if you don't want them to go to that. They can go to the library and study or something, which isn't too bad. But as I say, a lot of the schools are Catholic, so you have to have a religious degree to even teach in the fucking thing.
Yeah, here are religious schools. You don't need to be an accredited teacher. So that's even worse. That's one of the problems with some of the political shit we have going on right now, is that they're starting to funnel money out of public schools and secular education into religious schools, which is garbage. How many fucking scientists are we going to have here? There's a reason we're importing our smart people. Schools are important, and they used to be important when I was a kid. I mean, fuck.
Yeah, the idea of the American dream died a good few decades ago.
So the more I look at it, Reagan's got a lot to answer for.
Dude. No, and it's really opened my eyes. Twitter actually has, because I've met so many people from so many different areas. And like I said, I live in my own little California bubble. Everybody thinks I surf and, have a tan. I don't.
You're a redhead. How could you have a tat?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I actually have a little bit of sunburn. Right at the moment. I got my first one yesterday doing yard work because I can't do anything else.
Irish people don't get tans. We go red, then we peel, then we're back to white again.
Yeah, it just goes back to white again. That's what people would tell me. So I was a ring girl for a little while, and they decided to take it. They were going to televise it, and I didn't make the cut to go on TV because I refused to tan. And the girl I was doing it with, she's like, yeah, but you can just tan a little bit here and there and you'll build up a tan. I was like, no, I don't think you understand how my skin works. Like I said, hey, you know, I got freckles. I'm covered in freckles. But yeah, no tan. And then they wanted me to spray tan and that just went, no, fuck them. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, man. You know, I've been this way for 40 years. I'm not spray tan. So it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I burn and peel too. And I remember, so I don't go out in the sun too much. When we were kids, we were running around all the time. And then when you'd go to peel, like my sisters would be fighting over who got to peel it, you know, and try and peel the biggest skin off your back or whatever.
I know a redhead that fell asleep on the beach. And was wearing a very low-cut top. It was Fortaventura, I think it was. And about 3 hours later, woke up and just their entire top of the chest was completely and utterly burnt to a fucking crisp. And to this day, if you look closely, you can actually see that the skin is different. The entire thing has been scarred for life. No, we don't tan, we just burn.
I grew up in Southern California, so Orange County was actually just trending the other day, and I'm terribly embarrassed. But I grew up down there, and we used to go to the beach all the time. And I fell asleep once on my stomach, or I was like reading a book, something. But I was a kid. I think I was like 12 or 13, and the back of my thighs burnt. So I couldn't sit on the toilet. So I remember my sisters holding me up by my arms so that I could go to the bathroom and laughing the whole way, because that's what big sisters do. They laugh at you when you're in pain. But that was one of the worst sunburns I think I've had. That, and I did a promotion for Ozfest where they wanted us to hand out flyers, and I was supposed to be under a booth. And even though I put on sunscreen, I was walking around this open like venue handing out shit. And of course we had white t-shirts on, so they're squirting us with squirt guns. So I ended up so burnt. I was off work for almost a week. It was pretty awful. Now that I'm older, I don't tend to burn as much. When we went to Hawaii, I just wear the shirts. So, waste of a good bikini.
Yeah, it's not
having to put on, you know, I'm covered up all the way.
I'm bald now, so I definitely don't go out in the sun at all. Do you have any more questions? You said you were going to write stuff down.
I told you I didn't.
I know, I'm putting you on the spot. Tell us something about Aaron that you know from Twitter that we haven't known yet. I don't know, I'm not on Twitter that much. You've had interactions with Aaron on Twitter. Is there crazy people that, like, what is the worst person you've met on Twitter, Aaron?
No, I stepped into the QAnon fucking thing. Like, I didn't realize. Yeah, that was fucking scary. Like, literally, that freaked me out a lot. Because I'm like, I think these people are serious. Yeah, some of the conspiracy shit. Holy fuck, dude. That, and there's some dirty shit on Twitter, too. I gotta say. I've slipped down a rabbit hole or two going,
From following this on Twitter. I think there's somebody set up 3 fake porn stripper accounts or something, and because Dave must follow the original and then he follows me, it was like, I've got 3 new people following Dave. Do you know these people? He was like, no, but they just followed me as well.
Yeah, I got that. Yeah. Like that, I got this thing, this follow, and then she, if it's really a she, DM'd me and said, hey, check out my Instagram. And
no, they're not. They're bots.
Yeah.
So my son told me about porn bots. That was how I found out about porn bots. He's like, they mess with you. I want you to do this and that. And I'm like, I thought there was just like a couple of hot chicks that were following me. I was like, sweet.
It's really fucked up when your teenage son teaches you more about porn than you already know.
Especially as a stripper, dude, for 20 years. No, I guess they solicit kids on Xbox. So, and we've been pretty tried to stay on top of who he's interacting with online. But yeah, no, he told me he never does. We have access to all his accounts. So if he did, we'd know.
Yeah.
But at least I think we would. That's kind of like the equivalent of marking the number on the VHS of the porn video when you're a kid, right? So that you can make sure that it's rewound back to the right number, so that your parents don't know that you've been watching. So, at least that was my first porn experience. But yeah, no, Twitter's kind of a cesspool if you step out of the out of the comfort zone. So
I was very chuffed whenever we were younger that Sky, you could automatically set it to change what channel you wanted to change it to. And as you say, whenever the porn, 12 o'clock, everybody would go to bed and all the parents are in bed, and you've set the Sky to automatically change at 12 o'clock to 10 past 12 for the Freeview and the X-Vision channel, and then it changes back to a movie channel. And it's, yes, I was watching movies all night. That's what I was doing. Not a bother. That's just before there was the internet and stuff like that. That's what we had to do, you know.
We had live TV. A weather girl that did the weather topless.
What about Channel 4's Eurovision, Dave? Do you remember Channel 4?
Yeah, that was quite cool.
Yeah. The French guy was absolutely insane.
Mm.
And everybody's just talking about porn now. John's actually looking it up on his phone.
Yeah, exactly. No, I got a notification that someone DM'd me on Twitter, and then I went to my DMs, and I could see like the little 3 dots bouncing back and forth. It shows you that they're typing, but there's no message here yet. So I just don't understand why it gave me a notification when there wasn't actually a message.
Channel 4 has also started doing that. Is it naked dating, where they have people behind screens with no clothes on, and the screen gradually moves up. You see their shins and then everything else, and it goes the whole way up, and the other person votes as it goes along to get rid of the people. Is it naked dating? What's it called?
I think you should introduce Aaron to Sex in a Box.
I don't know what Sex in a Box is.
Have you not had that one?
No.
No, what is that?
Oh, that was Channel 4 as well. It might be Channel 5, where they get a couple and they interview them before, and then they put them in this 6x6 box, and they have sex, and you kind of...
That was Channel 4.
What?
That was originally Channel 4. Yes, I never watched that.
Channel 4, and then they come out and they interview them afterwards.
Is that British?
Yes.
You guys have a weird sense of humor. I'm really sorry.
I know. I've never actually seen it.
Everything's so puritanical in America, regardless of, we're not big on our sexuality. Violence, guns, blood, all of it, perfectly fine. But sex, fuck no, can't do that. So, pretty fucked up.
Yeah, I guess I think my first ever boobs was National Lampoon's European Vacation. I think that was my first on-screen boobs. Mm-hmm. But when I was a kid, the only thing I knew about British people was it the Monkeys and Monty Python. So that was pretty much it. That was all I had.
That makes us look really fucked up.
I mean, I can't imagine how we look to the rest of the world at the moment. So
I'm friends with you, Dave, so I know how fucked up British people are.
My esthetician is British, and actually the products she sells me are British, and she's awesome. She's been here for a long time. I had a DJ a while ago that was British too, but he actually took classes to get rid of his accent. So, and then you only hear him when he's drunk. So then all of a sudden his accent will come out. So
I don't have an accent.
Yeah, no,
yeah, we're the ones with the accent, right, MathPig?
What?
I said we're the ones with the accent, right, MathPig?
Exactly, yes. I only have an accent when I put it on and say, "Stay away from me, Lucky Charms."
Wow, and you got the right hat on for that line.
When I went to Louisiana, they kept asking me, or they kept telling me I had an accent, and then I talked funny, and I was like, "Really?" Yeah. That was when they kept asking me if me and my friend if we surfed. which was so stupid. It just never, it was like, really? That was like the common question, was if we surfed. I was like, that's no.
And I would have asked them if they were married to their cousins, but
That's a legitimate question growing up in Georgia, though, is it not?
I didn't grow up in Georgia.
Connecticut.
Yeah, asshole. I always say to people, you can hear by my voice, I clearly am not from here. So, yeah.
Did they give you shit for not being from there?
When I first moved here, I was a little bit more, I did more, tried to go out more, and I just, unless I'm going up to Atlanta, I don't do anything really around the town that I live in or anything, because I just couldn't. The people here are just too much. It's too, when they first started closing the churches down, when people started getting sick, and there are a lot of people sick in my town. Some of the churches banded together and had a service in our square. It's just not the brightest folks in the world, and it's really it's so much of, like I said, it's not as bad as if you get further out of Atlanta, but it's still, I'm about 45 minutes outside of Atlanta, and that's far enough that everything is just church centric in my town, and I can't really do it anymore. So.
That's rough. We have Mormon neighbors, but they're literally the nicest fucking people ever. And the only reason I knew they were Mormon is because I went into their living room once, because they had an extra homemade chicken pot pie, and I saw the books on their bookshelf, and that was how I knew they were Mormon. But they're literally the nicest people. I've never heard anything about the religion whatsoever. But when I moved out of Southern California as a kid, I lived like in Orange County, where like Disneyland is, right? And so then we really did go to the beach, and like people surfed and shit. But I moved out to the rural foothills in Northern California. So like the foothills of the Sierra Nevadas, and out there where like dentists are rare, and everybody's got a couple of acres, but like you don't want to accidentally like walk up to somebody's driveway. Like it starts getting fucking sketchy. That was when because when I was a kid growing up in Southern California, I didn't think that like racism was a thing at all. And then I moved up to the fucking hills, and I'm like, holy shit, these people are like backwards. And it shocked me, actually. It was a bit of a culture shock with how just uneducated, and you had either people that had moved up from the Bay Area or Southern California, or you had people that had literally lived up there for 100 years. So I think I wonder if the South is maybe a little bit like that. Not like I said, when you get up into the hills in California, it gets a little rednecky. So, and that was, I didn't see, it was like different in the South though. It wasn't the same type of, I don't know. But
like I said, it depends on where, there are certain areas, and then there are also certain states that are worse. Georgia, I rag on it a lot, but Alabama, which is right next to me, is so much worse. I have some friends in Alabama, and it's just, I hear stories, and it's ridiculous. And it depends on where you are, but pretty much overall, once you cross that Mason-Dixon line, it's an entirely different world than the rest of the country. So
we're Presbyterian.
Yeah, it's weird.
We're Presbyterian here, and the Presbyterians are that fucking bad that my auntie passed away about a month ago, and even she didn't want to have the fucking minister ordain over the funeral, and she's religious. They're that much we call them Bible bashers. They're quite like the South, but that would be the worst that we would have. It's basically you're going to hell. It's not we can save you, it's just you fucked up, you're going to hell.
Yeah. Fuck you, they just write you off.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder what the Mormons think of us, but they're so nice. They really are just, it's not really in our face here so much. So, like I said, Twitter's taught me a lot, just learning people from other areas and that kind of stuff. I didn't realize how sheltered I had it here. So, people bitch about California. I really don't know why. I'm like terrified to move anywhere else except like Canada. Everybody's fucking nice in Canada.
Could you guys do me a favor? So I was DMing with a friend of mine here. Could you guys repeat everything you said in the last 10 minutes?
Oh yeah. So I am gonna
basically
have to
the church
bail
is bad. We're all eating babies. We were discussing our own barbecue sauce. Aaron was giving us some tips for a Californian barbecue sauce.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So I am gonna have to. I think I'm gonna have to bail here pretty soon. So.
Aaron, that's not a bother. I appreciate you coming in. We'll go for maybe another 10 minutes or so, and then we'll have done like an hour and a half. And if anyone's got questions for Aaron, anybody in the chat's got any questions for Aaron?
You heard of Garth Dawkins?
No.
Whoever's listening now or in the future, when this post is a video, buy Aaron's books. I bought all 3 of them here like a week or so ago.
Yeah, all the links are in the description. Everything's in the description. All the links for her post, her blog, her website, her books for Amazon. Everything's in the description. Give it a look. Give it a good read. Buy a book. Even if it's okay, Serpent keeps asking me, what's your thoughts on fondant? It's like the 3rd time she's asked this question.
Oh, fondant?
Yes.
Well, that actually makes the best penis skin. If you're making dick cakes.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. What's fondant? Like
fondant is it actually
is it like marzipan or something? Is it?
Marzipan is made with almonds, but it's kind of the same thing. It's like a really thick sugar paste. And if you've ever had like a wedding cake and you see that really that smooth icing on top of it, it's got like that thick layer. You actually roll it out like pie dough.
And you got to roll it out really thin if you're making dick skin, right?
Well, no, I mean more for the balls because then you're going to want it to wrinkle. But the shaft is usually a little thicker.
And I would have thought up until now, I would have thought that dick skin made the best dick skin. But
yeah, probably. I actually haven't made a dick cake in a long time. For Thanksgiving, I'll make pumpkin cakes because you can color it anything, but you can shape it into all sorts of stuff. So fondant is very versatile, but only something I break out for special occasions.
That's truly a sentence that I've never heard in my life.
What?
I haven't made a dick cake in a while.
Oh yeah, I haven't. I really haven't. There just hasn't been. All my friends got married. There's no more like bachelorette parties. So I'm actually, I'd love to make another one. My kid would be horrified, but No.
Oh, do you have a favorite cake that you like to bake? That's not a penis shape.
Do I have? I don't know. A lot of times I just try a lot of new stuff. So there's a good portion of the time I don't make the same thing twice. As far as cakes go, I like to make lemon cakes. Those are some of my favorite. I made an Irish whiskey cake for Christmas a couple of years ago, which was really cool. It was just like big, thick layers of cake with heavy cream and stuff. So a lot of times I do like pies and tarts and things like that. But obviously I'm not having a lot of like social gatherings. So been trying not to make shit and then eat it all myself.
Oh, wait a minute. You said pie tarts. Are we going back to talking about stripping again?
Oh, yeah. Funny.
Hasn't heard that before.
Yeah, sorry.
Aaron, I want to just thank you again for coming. Thanks, Dave, for coming, Mama for coming, and John, always good seeing you. It's good to see you back onto the scene producing content again. So everybody, as I said, check out Aaron's links in the descriptions. Dave, have you got anything going on tomorrow?
Critical questions at 1ish.
Mama, have you anything happening later on tonight?
Mm-hmm.
She does, yeah. You're interviewing Aaron Ra maybe or anything like that? No.
Yeah, on my channel at 9 Eastern time.
John, when is your apostate thing again on the Rages channel?
It'll be a week from today, probably around 3 in the afternoon Eastern time, and we'll be talking to an ex-Jehovah's Witness.
Perfect. Well, everybody, again, thanks very much for coming, and we'll oink and out.
No, all right. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, Aaron. Bye-bye, everybody.
Looks like I'm saluting an idiot arm.
Oh, she left.